Let's move on to the second. Let's move on to the second sector, price formation. Here on the top right corner, we have yearly demand on cigarettes.
Vlad might have some problems with
Yes,
internet
I think that
connection.
maybe with internet. Let's wait half of minute. Maybe they need to reconnect.
Sorry, we lost internet connection in our dormitory. We will
It's
share
okay.
presentation again. So I will start again from price formation. Here on the top right corner, we have yearly demand on cigarettes, which is formed by the number of smokers and average number of packs that one smoker consumes per 1 year, and an amount of illegal export. With this demand and with the knowledge about an approximate elasticity of markup to demand, we calculate how the markup will change in response to the changes in demand. The key factor here is a special effect by which the desired markup is adjusted and which allow to get an actual markup that will be set by producers. As it is the price on cigarettes, the main factor that influence its price is an excise tax. We represented it as a stock which inflow is determined by excise tax historical growth fraction. From 2020, there is an opportunity to implement the policy that would reduce the number of smokers. This policy is based on the aggressiveness of government actions. The higher the aggressiveness is, the higher is the excise tax growth. Finally, based on the excise, actual markup, and manufacturing cost, we determine the price on a pack. Also, with the help of excise and demand on cigarettes, we calculate the government revenue from tobacco excise and share of excise tax in total government revenue from taxes. The last sector is effects of cost. The main variable here is the cigarette share in income. Firstly, we calculate real average income per person based on nominal average income adjusted by consumer price index. Secondly, with the help of such variables as price on a pack, average number of packs that one person consumes per year, and average yearly demand, we determine cigarette share in income. Based on it, we calculate three different effects on those who don't smoke, those who smoke, and those who are past smokers. Effect of cost on starting is the strongest because non-smokers are not addicted to smoking and are more sensitive to the cigarette price. In contrast, effect of cost on stopping is the weakest because smokers can have an addiction and are less sensitive to the changes of price on cigarettes. Our goal is to reduce the number of smokers and increase the government revenues. Aggressiveness of government action is the main leverage point in the system for policy intervention, and increasing of aggressiveness causes the increase of the excise tax growth fraction. It stimulates rapid growth of price that in turn increase power of the effects of cost on smokers, non-smokers, and past smokers. For better understanding, let's compare values of main variables in 2025 with government aggressiveness 1 and 1.5. If aggressiveness is equal to 1, then excise tax growth fraction is equal to average historical growth fraction, that is 33%. It means that the government leaves the growth rate the same as it was earlier. In this case, in 2025, excise will be equal to 150 hryvnias per pack. There will be 4.14 million smokers in Ukraine, and government revenues from tobacco excise will be equal to 233 billion hryvnias. If aggressiveness will be equal to 1.5, then excise tax growth fraction will be equal to average historical growth fraction multiplied by the government aggressiveness, and excise growth rate will increase from 33% to 49.5%. In this case, in 2025, excise will be equal to 333 hryvnias per pack, on 183 hryvnias more. And in our country will be 3.05 million smokers, on 1 million less, and the government revenue will be equal to 399 billion hryvnias, on 166 billion more. Hence, by increasing the government aggressiveness as a policy to reduce the prevalence of smoking, all indicators may change positively in the future. Thank you for your attention, and we are open to your questions.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you that you take such a new and interesting topics and such an important topics, and connect some social issues with fiscal instruments and with system dynamics approach. Maybe we have some questions or comments here. If not, then we wish you good luck at your study now, because Evgenia and Vladislav are studying at the University of Bergen, and now have a lot of lectures, presentations, and other important projects. So thank you that you made this presentation, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I am glad to announce our next presenter, Vasil Gorbatyuk, professor of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy. Please, Vasil.
Yeah, do you see my first page? New energy and economic change, yes?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, my greetings to all the participants. I'm sorry because of being late because of postgraduate students just this morning. This topic was I discussed a year ago on at this conference, but did publish, unfortunately, paper, and I'm still developing this paper. Meanwhile, we applied to some international competitions and won the grants, CRDF, from the United States on this topic. On July 15th, I delivered a lecture to Kyiv School of Economics on economic modeling in an energy sector because of problems. If you remember, the spot price for energy in Ukraine was below the cost of production by nuclear stations. And other authors are Lyudmila Batykh and Denis Simonov. Denis Simonov already took part in our conference in February. Unfortunately, he got sick just a week ago, because of problem with pandemics. So the structure is the following. First of all, I would like to mention references, then some terms. First term is called levelized cost of energy. Then what is variable renewable energy? Then International Energy Agency greenhouse gas. Then Національна комісія, що здійснює державне регулювання у сферах енергетики та комунальних послуг НКРПП України. Then about modeling, about total revenues, price caps, adjustments, reductions, and raise. So references, we have already 3-year project with some Institute of Electrodynamics, National Academy of Ukraine, and also cooperating with Institute of General Energy of National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. And within this project, I published some papers. It's reference number 1, number 2. Number 2, the title is The Analysis of Stranded Assets on Imperfect Markets. Also, we published paper at the Kiev National University Shevchenko Kiev National University this year. And for regulation, very important reference in number 4 by Tirol. Tirol is a Nobel laureate of 2014. Then very good author is Gomez, monopoly regulation, especially in power sector, in energy. Then I refer to some my previous paper on energy and monopoly regulations. Then it's a PhD thesis from the Netherlands and some American papers on regulation, because energy sector is the subject to regulation even in the United States for a long time. It's not just perfect market, especially if you take into account some externalities, especially for nuclear LNG and so on. And let us start about some energy, specific energy terms. In energy, the cost is calculated for some time horizon. It's called levelized cost of energy, because it takes time to invest, to build, to operate, and then often you need to complete properly the energy operations. Especially it's important this for energy, for nuclear energy. It's very costly. It is a very costly operations. But today, because of variable renewable energy, this approach, traditional approach, is not enough. It often leads to incorrect results, especially in terms of finance and economics. Why? Because in traditional markets, you had mainly random or stochastic demand. In today's market, you have not only stochastic demand, you have also stochastic supply, because of variable renewable energy of mainly wind or solar energy sources. By the way, Norway is very active in Ukraine in this field, in the field of variable renewable energy. Therefore, because of this new issues of stochastic of both supply and demand, this term, traditional term, levelized cost of energy, needs to be modified properly. How to modify it is an open issue, as far as I understand. This issue is a subject for International Energy Agency of Greenhouse gas. This energy agency was established recently, about 10 years ago, and now includes about 30 full members, 18 full members and 19 multinational members. They have different programs, international programs. For instance, they have very interesting program devoted to solar energy. They in 2015, G20 created so-called solar OPEC with basic finance about $100 billion. And if you look at publications, you may see a lot of publications from some Arab countries, from India in this field and around the world. Due to these financial contributions and support, international support and financial support, scientists and engineers are exploring the field of renewable energy, especially solar energy. In Ukraine, these questions are subject to Національної комісії, що здійснює регулювання у сферах енергетики та комунальних послуг. Раніше вона називалась НКРЕ, зараз туди додали комунальні послуги, utilities. Це досить серйозна така організація. Там працювала наша випускниця Юля Коваля, наприклад. По-моєму, вона навіть очолювала чи входила в керівництво. А потім вона прийшла, по-моєму, в адміністрацію президента, а потім вона була першим заступником міністра економіки і займалася якраз енергетикою. This commission regulates market, and the similar commissions exist in other countries, all around Europe and in the United States as well. How to model the total revenues of energy provider? First of all, it should be total revenue should be not less than costs. Costs here are ex ante and ex post. C. And total revenues ex post should be equal to some convex combination with parameter B of this ex ante and ex post costs. This is approach by Tirole and Lafont, I mentioned in the references. Then we also should regulate prices in addition to revenues. Here we have dynamic process for prices, which includes also some kind of price index. Here is retail price index, RPI, and productivity, X, and some adjustments, Z. It's a formula 2. It's a big issue, in fact, and there are a lot of there is a lot of publications in this field, including my publications. In fact, it's the issue of monopoly regulation. Monopoly regulation is the topic investigated by Tirole, by Meyerson, another Nobel laureate, and many other people. And I mentioned basic paper by Gomez. Here, there is a question which price index we should take. We may also take consumer price index, some wholesale price index, so on. And productivity, we may measure productivity by different methods, X. And the problem is that because of new technologies, in general, there is a trend of to decrease energy consumption, and because of new technologies and because of global competition as well. Then adjustments. That adjustments, they have impact on revenues which are regulated by these government commissions. Also, it's a dynamic process. Formula 3 indicates on the dynamic process. In usual, these dynamic processes were applied to demand, and demand, you understand that at night you have low consumption of energy, and we have some peak load time periods, and in general, this dynamics is far more complicated. I know the works by using Bellman equation. It's quite complicated dynamic problem for demand. I don't for supply. By now, analytical approaches are not well elaborated because of we have computer power, we have a lot of paper data and good computers. So today approach is just gather data as much as possible and process them on the computers. Relation 4 is also dynamic process with some adjustments regarding to number of consumers, NC. And relation 5 is even more complicated. Relation when you took into account drivers and shifts in drivers, which have impact on the revenues. So, in addition, we have some factor alpha in relation 5. So the regulation is quite complex issue, which includes the dynamic processes with many parameters, with many data. And if you look at some instructions by our Ukrainian Commission or some other commissions in Europe and the United States, you may see such or similar relations. Such relations might be specific for energy, for every energy unit, for every energy provider or even energy station, depending on their technologies. For instance, if whether they are using coal or gas or some renewable sources of thermal energy or some other sources, and so on. Returns. In fact, the regulations, the effect of regulation is regulation of returns. It's called in Ukraine дозволена норма прибутку. Such return might be about 50%, for instance. It's a quite big issue in terms of financial terms, but it's used as such orders of such figures are used in Ukraine. But if you talking about returns, it's ratio from revenues to drivers. We also should compare this with the rates which takes place in the economy as a whole. Rates are defined by the relation 7, because if the energy company may get returns much higher than financial rates on financial markets, you probably might expect some negative externalities, and which we are observing in Ukraine. I think we should understand that all the markets are interrelated, including energy markets and financial markets. For instance, a recent case in Ukraine about sales of so-called renewable energy bonds, and the government did not compensate these funds to some companies, and because of that fact, the rates, the rankings of such bonds just deteriorated. And in Ukraine, I think it's new issue for us, but it's not new for European or American market. I think it's might be main conclusion for us that if we regulate допустима норма прибутку, we should compare this also with ставка референціонної Нацбанку, наприклад, or some other financial benchmarks. Then we may expect just a normal operation of energy market, including dynamic picture. I think it's a main idea of this paper, and I would like to finish this presentation and answer any questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very, very much. And I hope that we have some comments or questions. I just want to say that Vasyl Gorbachuk is also a part of this project that we told you before at the beginning of the conference, and he is one of the initiators of cooperation of System Dynamics Group with Ministry of Economic Development, and it's really amazing how this group of people take part and develop the project about their integration of the Donbas region. Dear participants, maybe some questions appeared. Such an interesting topic.
I would like, я хотів сказати, що написався українською мовою, тому що мені сьогодні це треба віддати текст від звіт українською мовою, якраз для Інституту електродинаміки, і для англійської це може будуть писати по проекту CRDF, і можливо для нашої цієї публікації так вже зроблю необхідний варіант.
Yeah, then thank you. And I think that Vasyl and other professors and students will discuss all these questions later when we have our another conference, annual conference at January or February. We will have an opportunity to develop these questions and discuss these issues more precisely. And now I want to invite Andrei Kaminsky, professor of Kyiv National University of Taras Shevchenko and also of Naukma, and Alexey Petrovsky, PhD student, Naukma. Please present your materials.
Well, my greetings for participants of the conference. First of all, I want to say about my impressions that today in this year, 10 years cooperation between NAUCMA and Bergen University were leading of this system dynamic topic, David Witt, and we thank very much for his enthusiasm, and this maybe our this direction devoted to the consumer lending modeling by CED, and maybe initiated really by David Witt. So our presentation devoted to consumer lending modeling, and we want to present our ideas. Do you see our screen, our file of this presentation?
Yeah, we see it. Everything is okay.
Okay, thank you. So we want to analyze consumer lending, which present in banking and in non-banking system as a object for applying CD approach. First of all, I want to provide some background why so much interesting, and this is you can see at the screen. We have this dynamic of consumer lending in Ukraine. Of course, this is not so much in the United States, but in any case, this is step by step increasing by years. Of course, it's maybe some shifts. You can see shift in this year, but in general, this is trend for increasing this. How we can analyze this system. First of all, we want to say that this is a really open system with different parameters, and maybe it is more background for this. You can see in this scheme which we have constructed for economic model. First of all, we see that this is banking lending system at the center of this logic, center of this our consideration. How it can be interpreted as CD. First of all, we want to consider one side, which is demand for financing, and for other side, this is demand for loan granting. So banking system demand to attract money, and this money, first of all, look for deposits which can provided by the as a individual, as an institutional participants of the market. Typically, this in our country two types deposits, which is very high proportion for USD, and these USD deposits from one side is hedging from possible devaluation, which typically in our history economic typical devaluation. After that, very many financing provided to bank in USD or in euro. Why we should interact with this and involve in our system dynamic models? Because this transform into loan granting in currency exchange from USD to hryvnia. So if it will be great devaluation, and this factor is external factor from the banking lending system, this is so-called systematic factor, systematic investor factor, systematic economic factor which impact for all system and for the system as a banking lending also. So from the other side, this is demand for loan granting, which arise from the householders. We looking for our segment. This is consumer lending. We in this model do not concern loans for firms as an indicator of business activity. We focus on householders. Well, when we consider this system in the center of this scheme, we have transferred deposits to householders through this banking system. And here we have some additional factor which impact to our model essentially. What are these factors which is really essential component of the dynamic banking lending system? First of all, this is competitive factor, and this competitive factor we have seen last period with a great increasing. This is online lending from the non-banking financial structures, financial firms, financial companies. Typical, this is Moneyval, Seven Credit, and so on. This really eat some consumers from banking lending system, especially at the segment of consumer lending without provisions, which is now very active development in Ukraine. So first factor which impacts very essentially, this is competitive factor with the microfinance companies. Second, this is alternatives possibility for banking system. It is really some situation in Ukraine which is not stimulate banking for lending system. This is buying of government bonds. We have in our country very high ratio for this segment, and they provide very high yield, and this very high yield, this is indicator for moving bank for this segment. This is 10-11%, and formally this is without risk because this is government bonds. And simply reason why I would be create so large system for consumer lending with a risk management system and so on, when I can buy today for one day only, spending time these bonds from government. Of course, this moves some assets, some attracted financing to the alternative possibility. Then next important factor, this is credit risk management. Credit risk management is very important because householders want to receive loans in any risk situation, because if it will be no possibility to pay, they will not possibility to pay, and it's maybe increased probability of default. So in this situation, banking should be find this point between risk and possible return in results of this system logic. And of course, one of the basic factors, this is GDP growth, falling effects, and demand to this consumer loans. Of course, when market go up, this may be some increasing of loan demands. And this we try to use some effect which is named as a Human-Minsky effect. And when we have great long period for demanding for loans, and this we have up moving GDP, you can see in my picture that it will be growth and growth of consumer lending from normal borrowing, this is speculative borrowing, and then it can lead to Ponzi borrowing. Typical this situation, which is named overhead of market, was at the 2008 when it was a mortgage crisis. It was typical presentation of Minsky moment. So this last factor, which is GDP growth, we involve in this post-Keynesian Human-Minsky approach. So if we can summarize on the factors or parameters which we want to include in our model, system dynamic model, this is first of all parameters under the bank control. So this is risk management and expenses for marketing and service in which attract householders. From other side, this is only partly depends on market conditions. This is deposit interest rate, credit interest rate, and third group of this for developing bank strategy, incoming flow of applicants. And as I say, these applicants can be change banks for the competitive segment. And after that, we also should take into account incoming flow of applicants and the framework of quality. If market go up according to Minsky effect, it will be worse and worse situation. As some economists said now that in the market of online segment loans, it may be a little bit Ponzi scheme for development. So after that, we have created group of factors and construct CD model. So this is GDP growth, fintech influence, government bond interest rate, and currency devaluation. This is out of hands for banks. And technical construction and implementation of this logic for system dynamic approach. My PhD student Alexei can provide. Please, Alexei, let's continue with your model.
Screen. Could you see the screen?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Moment. So 3 of 4 factors we only can use forecast due to the complexity of them is GDP growth, the currency devaluation, and the bond interest rate. But first one, the vintage segment, we can embed in a model and made it endogenous factor. So mainly we look the vintage segment is, as was mentioned, is crucial to consider when we model in the credit market due to the amount of loans it issued and influence on the bank system it did. For example, in 2021, vintage issued like 49 billion hryvnias. And for example, banks has like 170 billion hryvnias credit portfolio. So it's like 1/4 of bank portfolio. How we embed this factor? We start, it's influenced by two variables. First of all, is interest rate of vintage. It's affect price of attraction new borrowers. And the higher interest rate of vintage, the more costly to attract new borrowers for vintage. And it affects the inflow of applicants to vintage. And the higher this inflow, the greater profit vintage get. And of course, the higher profit, the a higher number of companies enter the market. And for example, in 2015, there was like 20 companies, and now it's like 60 active participants. So level of competition grow, and again, price of attraction new borrowers is growing. And this is the inflow of applicants to vintage affect the bank in two ways. First of all, it's decreased the demand on bank's loans, and as a result, the bank need to apply higher ability to risk and approve a higher number of loans. That's lead to the higher bad rate and of course a lower profit. And the alternative in a situation when the demand is quite low, for example, quite low is to switch to the bond portfolio, which even though it give like kind of guaranteed riskless profit, but it's much lower than regular consumer lending. So the general structure of CB model. Model consists of the four sectors. First of all is household sector. This sector is intended to model the demand on the loans and also ability of household to pay it. The second is vintage to calculate amount of inflow for this sector, and risk management is applied by bank to calculate the approval rate of inflow demand, and credit market is intended to show the credit portfolio of banks and bond portfolio and all other important variables. So on all these factors, on all these sectors includes three main factors: is currency devaluation, GDP change, and government bond yield. So first of all, I should mention it's still work in progress, so some direction will be improved in the future researches. So for now, the household sector, the model, the demand on the loans by the number of applicants depend on the GDP change. The higher GDP growth, the more confident people in their intention, in their future income, and the higher demand on the credit, and vice versa when GDP falls down. And the same with household income. And part of the inflow, a part of the demand is taken by vintage, and we can see it on this sector is quite simplified due to the structure of this sector, but mainly the inflow of borrowers consists of two kinds. First of all is unbanked clients that in any way wouldn't be able to get loan from bank due to their credit history or absence of job or other parameters. And secondly, it's clients that attracted by some means, for example, marketing or advertisement, that these clients could take loans in bank, but due to some reason they choose to use vintage. And the number of such clients depend on the marketing budget that vintage spend, and of course it depends on comparison between a bank interest rate and vintage interest rate, because the higher it, definitely people will notice it. And we can see the simple structure of this sector. Usually, for example, before the 2020, the cutoff point for like approval rate was near to 75%, and now it's like 70. So the rigidity of risk management of vintage became more strict. Next segment is risk management sector in bank. This sector is intended to show to calculate approval rate by bank. It's a more complicated system than in vintage. For example, the bank analyzes the distribution of borrowers by probability of default, and this distribution is changing by with GDP change. For example, the GDP grows, the higher number of borrowers became better, they able to pay loans, so the probability will fall down. Probability of default will fall down, and vice versa. And also, the Minsky state that better in some times when economic growth, bank accept higher risk from borrowers, so acceptable bad rate is also growing. Of course, we know that NBU state new regulation from the February 2022 when they apply higher weight to the consumer loans, and it's kind of will restrict this parameter, but for now it's working this way. And finally, the credit market sector, it calculates the bank credit portfolio and the ability, the amount of like bank capital, deposits, bond portfolio. So from all other sectors, we get such parameters as demand on loans. We get the approval rate from the risk management sector, the ability to pay, level of debt from household sector, and all these factors, GDP change, currency devaluation, and government bond influence the system in this sector as well. So the decision to buy the bond, for example, in two cases is when is more profitable, accounting the actual bad rate, which could be gross, especially high in a crisis situation, and in second situation, it's for example 2020 when a bank has huge funds of liquidity and really low demand on the credit. So in this situation, bank also would purchase some bonds. And by using this model, we, for now, we can, for example, estimate the number of applicants of vintage each quarter, calculate bank portfolio, its credit portfolio, bond portfolio, and bank income from lending. But in future, of course, we will calculate more precise and more variables that is in line with our research. For now, it's a work in progress. And our perspective research direction, it's in more detail research how variables actually change, the significance change in technology, and of course, how system can fall into practice.
Thank you very, very much. Really impressive research and impressive work. I want to say that both Andriy and Alexey took part in the project and went to Bergen University. Andriy for a shorter period and Alexey for the whole semester. So we see the incredible results. So Dear participants, your questions or comments? Such an interesting topic. Consumer lending, it's can be connected with all of us.
Yes, moreover, by the different ways. Someone don't like banks because it is necessary to go to the great building and so on. But other likes reverse. They like go to the bank because this is a stable institutions. But how it will be dynamic, taking into account fintech development, this is a great questions which we try to model.
Yes, banks are facing challenges now because the landscape changes. More and more fintech companies attract consumers and clients of banks. So it's really a great question how to operate, how not to lose clients, and how to attract new clients.
Or maybe wider, how remain in the market.
Yes.
How continue business and financing.
Yes, and I think that next years it will be one of the most important questions in the financial market.
Yes, we have studied, when we prepare our research, we have studied investigation of the Harvard Business Group about the questionnaire for 300 high level managers of banks, and more than 60% answer that next 3 years it will be great threat for banking from this fintech system development.
Yes, okay.
They are worried about this in great extent.
And we will observe, research, and discuss.
We hope, yes.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Andriy and Alexey, for your presentation. It's really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing conference regularly each year.
Yeah, and we will continue this good tradition.
Very nice.
Thank you. And we are moving and invite Maria, master student from Naukma, to make her presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. One moment, I'll make the demonstration. I hope you see it, right?
Yes.
Great. So, okay, my topic is modeling of the impact of labor productivity and productivity of fixed assets on return on assets and return on equity. So we all know that profitability is one of the main criteria for enterprises, as it measures the efficiency of their activities. But it's worth noting that if a company makes a profit, it doesn't mean that it's already profitable. So in order to determine the profitability of the company, it's impossible to estimate special indicators that can help investors, shareholders, owners of the company, top managers, and as well as ordinary workers to determine the efficiency of a particular enterprise. And actually, one of the most popular profitability ratios that we use in financial analysis is ROE and TROI. And actually, they show how profitable is a company relative to its total assets and how efficient a company generates its profits. So, having done a profound financial analysis of one of the most prominent companies in the pharma industry in Ukraine, it's Pharmak. It was found out that actually in 2019 and 2022, as the values of these indicators decreased. and it will decide like to see using the modes of system dynamic whether it is connected with productivity of fixed assets and productivity of labor force of labor is at this company, and because and actually or maybe it's connected with some other issues, and that's why we formulated several hypotheses. And for example, if we consider that there is an increase of labor productivity, that itself depends on the number of workers in the company and the volume of drugs and other medical items they produce during the financial year. And actually, this will lead to the increase in production, which itself will increase the revenue, operating profit, pre-tax profit, and net income of the company. And of course, if we take in consideration the moderate growth of assets. And actually, it will increase the return on assets and equity. If we speculate the decrease of labor productivity, so actually it will decrease the rate of revenue, working and financial income too. And whereas companies' assets will grow faster than the revenue due to increase of accounts receivable, cash, and inventories, this will reduce ROI as we observe the reduction of efficiency economic assets to generate net income. According to another hypothesis, the growth of productivity of fixed assets, which depends on the amount of fixed assets left after the depreciation deduction and output during the financial year. And there will be an increase in drug production, which ultimately will lead to increase in gross profit, as fixed assets actually play a very important role in the asset part, especially in such company as Pharmac. And actually it will lead to the higher it will lead to the higher value of our ROI and ROI. And also, we will, as we will see that as the higher is the productivity, then the higher is the level of production, and so on. So, for example, if we see that return on equity will decrease, it might be connected with labor productivity. It is reduced too, and actually it unfortunately will negatively affect on growth rate of net profit. So also the increase of lower productivity of fixed assets will increase the production capacity of the enterprise, and it will indicate the more efficient usage of equipment during the production process, and also have a positive impact on EBIT. And if the level of productivity of fixed assets is reduced, then ROI will decrease too. The company actually is not able to use this equipment at full capacity, and actually it might be associated with significant depreciation of its equipment, which will further reduce growth of production and respectively its sold products and net income. And after that, we can move to the model that was built, and actually it's a huge one, not very big, but actually it's a simplified version of it, but still. And actually there are several stocks in our models. That's inventories, labor productivity, fixed assets, and actually unproductivity yeah, and here are also some flows connected to it that actually have to define the value of them. And actually in our model, we can define several loops. One of them is reinforcement. One, you can actually see it on the picture. So if we consider that there is an increase in inventories, actually it will lead to the increase of sold products. If there is an increase of sold products, actually the number of products sold per person will increase too. We will see the growth in its growth rate, and actually it will lead to the positive change of labor productivity. And actually we will see that labor productivity is going to, and actually it leads to the growth of production and so on. And also we can see the balancing loop that is connected with with how the increase in inventories actually also lead to the sold products. It will also, in this way, increase the desirable production value. It will lead to the increase in investments. And as investments increase, we actually are more willing to invest more like money in fixed assets in order to make production better. And the increase of it actually will decrease FA turnover ratio. If we take into consideration the steady growth of sales, but nevertheless, it will still we will see the growth rate of FA turnover ratio, and actually we will see the positive change of productivity of fixed assets and the increase of production. So when the simulation was conducted, actually we have observed that the productivity of fixed assets started to decline from 2016, and labor productivity from 2017. And actually, it's very and we can see like the same thing connected with the ROI and ROI that are declining started from 2018. So actually we can really so actually it turns us to the fact that the company has reduced the efficiency of fixed assets, and actually this led to the slower growth rate of production. As a result, slower growth of enterprise revenue, and actually that led to smaller growth rate of net income, and especially that was the lowest in period 2019 and 2020. It was 1% and 8% respectively, and actually it led to the decrease of ROI and ROI. So about conclusion, what I would say that actually, according to the build model and the simulations that were conducted using the methods of system dynamics and real data from financial statements of this company, especially the hypotheses were confirmed, as we have observed that the decreased level of return on assets and equity are actually connected with the decreasing of level of productivity of labor and fixed assets. And also, as our hypothesis also as it was done on not as a theoretical model, but as a practical that was built using the real data. So actually we have observed that the values that we received just by calculating the ROI and ROI using like the formulas for these ratios, it was but using the system dynamics model, we could also receive the same numbers that actually confirms the application of this model and results. And of course, it could take in a company could take it into account, and also like further things could be added to the model in order to see some other result. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria, very, very much. I want to say that Maria wrote her bachelor thesis connected with this topic, and we sent her research to Pharmac, and they were so impressed by her investigation, by her analysis, that the chief officer of Pharmac said me that they want to see Maria on scholarship or as a colleague, because the work that she did was really amazing. So Maria, thank you for your deep investigation, for your always deep research, and I welcome questions. I see a question from Natalia, please.
Good afternoon to everybody. I have a question regarding your presentation. Is it possible to use this model for different companies of different branches? Like, does it matter any branch, or it's like can be used for any company?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. To my mind, yeah, it's possible to use this model for other companies, especially actually that's the thing that I'm going to do with my coursework this year, because as the previous year I conducted according to one for one company, and that year I want to expand it, and especially of course it's like simplified version. So if we add some other stocks and flows and other converters to the model, it will be more like a universal one for usage. And to my mind, it's actually the thing that I have found out in my research. I guess it's suitable not only for this company but for many others in not maybe in our country but in others too, because it's things that actually are correct, and it was very interesting to find out whether it's actually is so. So to my mind, yeah, this model is could be used for other companies too. We can expand it to make it more sophisticated, and that will be used. That will be like even like more suitable for other companies in order to make their own researches, not just by calculating some ratios and make some analysis, but like see the like the picture like more vivid.
Okay, thank you, thank you. A nice presentation, very nice research. Thank you.
Yes, if we don't have any questions or comments, then thank you one more time and good luck with your studying in Bergen in spring semester. And we are glad to invite our next speakers, master students from Lviv National University, Maria and Anastasia.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm sorry, my name is Maria. I'm a master student at Lviv University. Yeah, my name.
Maybe if you are sitting together and have two devices.
Sorry, but we are living in one room and it's a bit hard to present sometimes.
It's better to use one device because you will have this echo if you use two devices nearby.
Yes. Today we are going to involve you into the system dynamic model of worker burnout and efficiency.
Sure, the first question that came to our mind, why is this problem relevant? In a fast-moving, constantly evolving society, individuals might easily become worn out and unable to operate effectively if they are not careful. Disproportionate stress could lead not only to chronic fatigue, but also to a wide variety of psychological, medical, and behavioral problems, such as irritation, alcoholism, mental illness, and heart diseases. And afterwards, it could possibly cause negative consequences for both employees and employers. The main idea of this work is to outline the dynamics of worker burnout and explore the negative influence of stress on workers' energy level. For the subject of our research, let's review the article of Jack Homer, Worker Burnout, a dynamic model with implications for prevention and control, adding to it a few new variables considering the personal experience, which are extremely important to explore the topic.
The basic behavior of the model is presented over a 75-week time horizon. During this time, the weekly accomplishment rate rises but then falls dramatically 3 times along with the energy level. Burnout cycle has a period of 30 weeks, and 1/3 of it is the decline phase during which accomplishments decrease to 1/6 of its maximum value.
On the next slide, you could observe the entire model view, already containing 2 shocks, which I added considering my personal experience. Now let's focus on the biggest part of the model containing energy level and try to add one of mentioned before shock. As far as it concerns, there are a great deal of variables that could influence energy recovery, but if we delve into the issue of energy level, we can easily understand that besides proving influential components of energy level, we could facilitate energy recovery as well. Obviously, our emotional and physical health is improving after minding our own business, And clearly, it depends to a large extent on the individual scope of activities, interests, and abilities, such as volunteering, sports, traveling, art, music, dancing, childcare, etc. And according to this assumption, let's add some positive, or so to say, recovery shock after fifth working week to our model that contribute to energy recovery. On the graph 5, we can observe the behavior of energy level after adding the recovery shock. And from what we can see, the decision of adding into daily grind some hobbies or favorite activities is always improving humans' well-being. The energy level doesn't fall so low comparing with the previous occasion. The lowest point is now 8% higher, and furthermore, energy recovers even a bit more efficiently. The highest point is now 0.5% higher. Concerning the difference between runs of perceived accomplishment, it's important to emphasize that shock induces the individual to increase in the completed tasks over the same period of time, and moreover, person manages to accomplish 6 more tasks per week, being out of resource, in contrast to the initial conditions. A similar approach could be used regarding some negative aspects that could sharply depreciate our energy level. Crash dieting, insomnia, trouble at home, people who are used to act like powers vampire, depression, etc. And according to this assumption, let's try to add some negative, or so to say, depletion shock after fifth working week to our model that contribute to energy depletion. On the graph 8, we can observe the behavior of energy level after adding the depletion shock. And from what we can see, all of the before-mentioned causes are worsening human well-being. The energy level is falling even lower comparing with the base run. The minimum point is now 8% lower. And furthermore, energy recovers less efficiently. The highest point is now 2.6% lower. Concerning the difference between runs of perceived accomplishment, it's important to emphasize that shock induces the individual to decrease in the completed tasks over the same period of time, and moreover, person manages to accomplish 7 less tasks per week being out of resource, and 14 less tasks per week even having maximum energy supply in contrast to the initial conditions. So, to summarize all simulations, we can come to the conclusion that after minding our own business, doing some hobbies and favorite activities, it becomes far easier to perform the work and all daily stuff. In comparison, all the negative aspects sharply depreciate our energy level and reduce the amount of accomplished job.
Let's add to the initial model interest in work. Having analyzed my own experience of dealing with a burnout, I can absolutely declare that this aspect has a significant impact on the development of the syndrome. The higher the interest is, the longer our working hours without experience of energy depletion. Table 1 represents the hypothesis of possible effect of interest in work on energy depletion. In Figure 11, you can see the small part of the model with energy level stock, which contains interest in work variable. Assuming that the interest in work is 0.5, the model produces behavior represented in Figure 12. The burnout cycle here is approximately 26 weeks, and the process of energy depletion is rather quick. For 10 weeks, energy level drops from 0.85 to 0.23, perceived adequacy of accomplishments from 0.9 to 0.4, accomplishments per week from 68 to 11 units per week, and hours worked per week from 80 to 37 hours per week. Assuming that the interest in work is 0.75, the model shows the behavior presented in Figure 13. Here, burnout cycle is 47 weeks, which is almost 2 times longer than with lower interest in work. Process of energy depletion is much gentler. For 39 weeks, energy level drops from 1 to 0.45, perceived adequacy of accomplishments from 1 to 0.7, from week 11 to 41st, level of accomplishments per week drops from 71 to 31 units per week, and for 25 weeks, hours worked per week are at the highest level and only then decrease to the point of 65 hours per week. Thus, the situation is much less disastrous for both employee and employer. Finally, assuming that the interest in work equals 1, we get the results presented in Figure 14. In this situation, model stabilizes in equilibrium. When energy level reaches the point of 0.851, it doesn't change anymore. Perceived adequacy of accomplishments drops to 0.801 and stays there. These values are reached in 30 weeks. After 15 weeks, hours worked per week grow to its maximum of 80 hours per week and do not fall after. In 29 weeks, accomplishments per week stabilize at the point of 68.1 units per week. As the results of the simulations show, the more employer is interested in work, the less is amplitude of the burnout cycle. This means that he can work longer hours without exhaustion, and the quality of his work is still high. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much. One more time, it's amazing how our students and participants use system dynamics to such different topics and such important topics. I really got a pleasure to listen about burnout, how can it be, and thinking how not to burn out at my job, at my work. So thank you very much. Maybe some other comments, questions, reflections. What do you think about your burning out, dear colleagues? In our sphere, everybody is happy with his job. So Maria and Anastasia, thank you very, very much for your presentation. And we are moving. Thank you. We are moving to the last but not the least, Valeria and Mykola, who are now studying in Bergen University and also prepared an interesting and important presentation about undeclared work in Ukraine. So please present your research. We see your screen, everything is okay.
Good morning. Today we're going to present you our model, which is bounded to a very important topic, especially nowadays, undeclared work. Our work is based on the assumption about which tools are better to implement in Ukraine to tackle this such obstacle as undeclared work. Next slide, please. In Ukraine is definitely not an exception in working in shadow. This issue of undeclared employment is very actual nowadays and constituted 22.8% of people who work undeclared, which means that 1 person out of 5 people work in shadow. Next slide, please. On this slide, it can be observed the dynamics of the undeclared work in Ukraine. For 2020, it's constituted 18%, which means that more than 3 million people are working in shadow and don't pay taxes. And next slide. It is important to mention that there are a lot of measures which might be implemented to tackle this undeclared work. In a whole, it can be divided by 2 categories, direct and indirect tools. A first group contains sticks, which means increasing penalties and sanctions against people. However, second policy is indirect tools, mostly focusing on dealing with public institutions in case of rebuilding the social contact in a prospect. This policy is also about implementing the marketing campaign to show people where their money from taxes are gone. So it is created to build the vertical trust between government and society. Next slide. This is our causal loop diagram. Let's see what do we have about Ukraine. There are 4 loops, 1 reinforcing and 3 balancing. As you can see in first loop, which is reinforcing one, is represented reasons why people choose to continue working and grow in numbers in undeclared work. It all starts from low average salary in the country, which leads to desire to survive and in turn be an undeclared worker. And then the money are obviously hidden because of the fear of punishment, which means no taxes paying, having a great impact on the development of the country and circle-wise. A second and third balancing loops show government feedback on the undeclared work level, which mostly are direct policies, punishment and penalties, accompanied with supervision. The last balancing loop represent how people who work in the shadow decide to move to legal work. That happens often through fear of punishment and being detected. Last parts of the CLD are direct and indirect tools, which are policies that are observed in the model, left and right sides. So the main goal of the work is to monitor which policies have better impact on the undeclared work rate in Ukraine. That is why both direct and indirect tools are included in the model. Next slide. I'm sorry, you have a problem?
We hear you. Everything is okay.
Yeah, but you don't hear Valeria.
Maybe you can continue, Mikola. Yourself.
Yeah, sure. It's our whole model. The whole model is provided on this slide. Generally, undeclared work and people who move to legal works, we present it as stocks. And increase in rate of undeclared workers and movement from shadow side to legal one are flows between them. All other variables are converters, which help to create loops in model to show endogenous structure for undeclared work. As well, policies which are suggested are on the left side, direct tools, and right side, indirect tools. And next slide, we'll continue, Valeria.
Yes, sorry, now I hope you can hear me. Yes.
Yeah, we hear.
Okay. And now we move to the results from policy implementation. On the slide, you can see 3 graphs. First graph shows us how the implementation of direct methods, such as more aggressive penalties and supervisions, could help to decrease undeclared work. Dark blue solid line, which represents results from direct tools, is slightly below historical data of UV development. It's light blue dotted one. In turn, the next graph shows how indirect tools may help in undeclared work level decrease. And from implementation of indirect policies in the short-term period, they work worse than direct. However, in the long terms, they have better results, and it's needed time for direct tools to start working. The last graph shows results from both direct and indirect policies implementation, which has the best results and should be considered as a goal to combine these 2 policies. All in all, many authorities try to reduce the amount of undeclared work which is occurring in their countries due to bad consequences on the welfare of the country and the economy in whole by implementing punishment instead of trying to change the whole system. However, the primary goal in solving this issue is trying to convince to move to undeclared work, from undeclared work to the declared one, but not eradicating it. That's why in this work is showing some measures and their effectiveness, which could be great tools to tackle with this issue. As a result, changing the whole system and building step by step the vertical ties between government and society and increasing the supervision simultaneously will be more effective in the long-term period. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we are waiting for questions and comments. I think that question of shadow economy, of undeclared work, of unofficial working are one of the most discussed and most important questions in Ukraine. We still have a great share of undeclared work. Dear colleagues, maybe you have some questions or comments. I see Natalia, please.
Yes, I have just a small question. Did you take into account those people who are undeclared, I mean the work is undeclared, or those also who have the part of their salaries undeclared, like partly they are receiving in shadow, partly not?
Yeah, we count both of them because firstly we built a model with only unemployed people, but then we decided to move to all labor force because some employed people also earn part of their salary as undeclared and not pay tax for it. So we take into account both of them.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you for your question.
More questions, comments, please, colleagues? Okay, if not, then we have next conferences, and I think that we will have an opportunity to discuss more questions. And now I am pleased to give a word to closing remarks to Irina Grigorievna, our leader of project. As David told today, without Irina Grigorievna, there would be no project at all, because it really was her desire, her energy, and her attitude to work to start all this that we now enjoy and take part. Please, Irina Grigorievna.
Да, дякую, Оленочка. Я думаю, що я можу вже українською мовою. У нас нема зараз присутніх іноземців. Так, приємніше згадувати, швидше мені, принаймні, я. От, дійсно, шановні колеги, під колегами я маю всіх і сьогоднішніх учасників такої знаменної події, нашої вже теперішньої щорічної конференції з системної динаміки, всіх наших симпатиків, всіх наших випускників, всіх, хто був учасником цього проєкту і не тільки, хто до нас приєднався, приєднується і буде приєднуватись. І взагалі важко повірити, шановні колеги, що 10 років тому системна динаміка – це була терра інкогніта в Україні, що таке системна динаміка, який це інструментарій, як його застосовувати на практиці. Ну, практично ніхто не знав, можу сказати, ну, навіть так зрозуміло, абстрактно, можливо, хтось і використовував системну динаміку під іншим трошки терміном, але імітаційне моделювання, але в принципі, от як такий повноцінний інструментарій не тільки навчальний, але й інструментарій такий ефективний наукових досліджень. Ні. І хочу сказати, що дійсно, от ми з Девідом Вітом декілька років виписували цю концепцію і спів такої праці, і концепцію проєкту, тому що, ну, повірте, це був тоді такий фантастичний проєкт. Україну в Норвегії також майже ніхто не знав. Українські університети, ну так, були на слуху, звичайно, там Могилянка, університет Шевченко, інші університети такі відомі, Львівська політехніка, але Львівський університет, але в принципі, що ми собою представляємо як науковці, да, як студенти, як дослідники, ніхто не знав. І тому те, що ми виграли цей проєкт, нас повірило, і це були шалені кошти для того часу виділені, і підтримка з боку норвежського уряду розвитку системної динаміки, підготовки кадрів в Україні. Це дійсно була така подія і для України, і в Норвегії вона освітлювалась в пресі. Ну і для нас це був виклик. І зрозуміло, що спочатку ідея проєкту була такою більше як навчальною. І вона не перетворилась, трошки концепція змінилась. Вже дійсно, коли ми приїхали безпосередньо в Берген, з нашою першою групою, я думаю, тут принаймні Олександра Фаріна, наші студенти Олександра Фаріна всі знають. Перша група поїхала, це були наші випускники магістерської програми і аспіранти, які тільки вступили в аспірантуру. Олександра Фаріна, Ярослава Стельмашенка, ну, Ірина Валенюк. Це були перші 3 наших могилянці, які мали взагалі-то відстоювати честь Могилянки і показати, що ми ну, такі серйозні люди з серйозними перспективами, серйозні у нас студенти і дуже компетентні. Ну і дійсно, коли ми вже, можна і другий слайд, да, Оленочка, показати, от, коли ми вже приїхали і працювали в Бергені і над розвитком проєкту, і все, прийшла ідея така, знаєте, доповнити навчальну складову ще й науково. Ми зрозуміли, що просто ілюструвати певні положення системної динаміки, використовуючи модель, ну, навіть чудова модель Девіда Віта, але вона все-таки більш адаптована до економіки Сполучених Штатів Америки, що нам краще все ж таки подумати і зробити таку модель української економіки. І там ми почали от прямо таким невеличким колективом. У нас 4 людини, ну плюс, звичайно, Девід Віт, безумовно, тільки завдяки йому. Ми почали активно працювати, там ми день і вночі концепцію моделі розробляли і вже навіть зробили перші розрахунки для певних галузей. І тоді ж ми поїхали на конференцію в Ставангер і там доповідали свої перші такі результати, можна сказати, от просто щойно зроблені. І тут є слайд, да? Можна, Олена, показати, от ми на конференції в Ставангері, ну, тут ми і про проєкт розповідали, ну і саму концепцію моделі. Чи я можу показати? Ні, не можу.
А ось я так розумію, що внизу це макролапу Україн, це ж і є.
Да. От він. А, так видно, да, всім?
Так.
Ага, чудово. Ну, от, дійсно, нас підтримали, і ця ідея розвивалась. І от бачите, вже потім до нас приєдналась така чудова, я вважаю, команда Львівського національного університету на чолі з Маріаною Ляскевич. Я вважаю, що там фантастичні також студенти, які захоплюються системною динамікою. От я сьогодні слухала ці теми, які вже абсолютно, я би сказала, навіть і дотичні, не тільки економічні, фінансово, вони дотичні до таких досліджень із соціології, медицини, і взагалі, ну, моделі настільки вже серйозні, настільки вражаючі, що дійсно можна сказати, що наша співпраця з Норвегією, вона ну, така мала успіх, має успіх, і я думаю, буде мати успіх. І насправді проєкт вже закінчується, ну, 10 років це, звичайно, забагато, навіть для такої потужної співпраці. Але я так думаю, що ми будемо продовжувати і в інших напрямах. І те, що вже 4-й рік поспіль відбувається не просто конференція наукова, а саме з системної динаміки, ну, я вважаю, що це фантастичне досягнення. І навіть в Бергені в цих центрах, я би сказала, системної динаміки, такі конференції відбуваються, ну, да, щорічно, але це міжнародний масштаб, це не просто університетська конференція, це вже такий от міжнародний масштаб, це дійсно конференція системної динаміки, але де приймають участь, ну, метри здебільшого системної динаміки. А те, що у нас, вона започаткована, і, в принципі, ініціатором цієї конференції, я би сказала, ідейним таким метром цього всього є Олена Костянтинівна, вона запропонувала. І навіть я скажу, що я на початку не думала, що так вдасться, ну, от окремо конференцію по системній динаміці. Ну, Олена у нас фантастична людина, вона просто надихає всіх і вся. І тому я дякую Олені, я дякую всім, хто і сьогодні приймав, і протягом багатьох років брав участь в даному проєкті, всі, хто зацікавився системною динамікою. Ну і зрозуміло, велика також подяка нашим колегам, нашим однодумцям, нашим партнерам, нашим друзям з Львівського національного університету. У них також фантастичні роботи. І я знаю, ця синергія, цей трикутник, знаєте, трикутник найбільш така, ну, фігура, да, стійка. От, Норвежський, Бергенський університет, Львівський університет, Києво-Могилянська академія, вона дала такі надзвичайні плоди. І я сподіваюся, що ми будемо співпрацювати і будемо продовжувати розвивати методи системної динаміки і в навчальному процесі, і в наукових дослідженнях, навіть якщо у нас і не буде вже цього проєкту, ми вже самі можемо інші проєкти собі розвивати, започатковувати. І я бажаю всім зустрітись вже, я би сказала, на таку ювілейну конференцію 5-ту, да, наступного року. Хай всім щастить і бережіть себе, тому що часи непрості. Дякую всім.
Так, дуже дякуємо, Ірина Григорівна. І я з радістю передаю слово Маріані Оріскевич, нашій колежанці зі Львову. Ми дуже щасливі, як сказала вже Ірина Григорівна, що у нас в проєкті є такі чудові учасники.
Дуже дякую, Олена Константинівна, дуже дякую, Ірина Григорівна. В першу чергу за те, що ви нам дали оцей шанс долучитись до цього чудесного проєкту, який має насправді дуже багато наслідків для багатьох людей. І, зокрема, для мене особисто, що я вивчила англійську, тому що якби не проєкт, я не вивчила. Тому,
я трошки також вивчила, але не так вже класно, як ти, Маріана.
I will try English. Okay. We are very happy to take part in this conference and in all your great events. And it is the 4th conference in Ukraine that is devoted precisely to system dynamics. And as I know, it is the only one in Ukraine. And the conference is the one of many outcomes from our international project between Kyiv-Mohyla University and Ivan Franko University, and of course, University of Bergen. And I want to give my big thanks to my person, and that we are all grateful to David Witt, whose energy and permanent effort, as we see, could involve so many people in Ukraine to delve in system dynamics, and as he likes to say, to be infected with system dynamics. Every year, the conference becomes stronger and more popular, and we have such a great amount of participants. And this year, we had the opportunity to listen to so many interesting talks. And what is very pleased that the quality of research becomes higher. Many excellent talks from students that have already had the experience in system dynamics. And there were also many words from students who just start to make the first step in system dynamics and to build the first model. And I'm grateful to those students as well. As students provide interesting ideas for everyone can use, and we can develop them in the future. I want to give my huge thanks to Elena Konstantinovna for great organization of this conference this year and every year. And of course, to all the team of Kyiv Mohyla University. Irina Grigorievna, thank you very much for all these possibilities that you provide for our students from Lviv, particularly to take part in the conference and also with other cooperation. I'm sure that for students it is excellent experience, and not only to get knowledge and skills in system dynamics, but also to have experience to presenting their work and to share ideas. So thank you everyone for great cooperation between our teams and between our great universities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariana. It's very nice.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Irina. And from my side, I want to thank all the participants, all the guests of conference, because I know that you have a lot of different assignments, you have a lot of lectures and projects, and it's very important for us that you found time, you dedicate your time to participation, to making some questions, comments, to writing the thesis of your presentation. And I want to say that if you didn't send your thesis yet, you can do it. I will wait. For example, I can wait 1 week more. I will work on the thesis I already have. And next year, as always, we will have the proceedings of our conference. It will be published, and it also will be posted on ECMAIR. So it will be a small contribution to your CV, to your scientific profile. And I hope you will like it. So thank you very much one more time. I'm very grateful to all of you.
A special thanks to you, Олена.
It's a good Friday.
Тому що це чесно, це просто хто не організовував конференції, не може собі уявити, як це важко, як це не просто всіх об'єднати, надихнути і
змусити
на такі виступи. І, в принципі, дуже класні презентації. Реально такі вже, знаєте, рівня, я би сказала, такого міжнародного хорошого рівня хороших університетів на Заході. Так що це просто фантастика. Дякуємо, Олена. Дякуємо, Маріана, і всім велика подяка. Ну і до зустрічі.
Всім до зустрічі, всім до побачення.
Дякую вам. Дякую, до побачення.
До побачення.
На все добре.
На все добре, шановні.